Nurses, cardiologists, emergency medicine physicians, those are just a few of the hardest to fill positions in the healthcare industry today. If you're in HR, you know the struggle of how hard it is to source job seekers for roles such as these. So we're bringing on experts in Amber Clayton of SHRM and Desiree Hodges of the American Association of Critical Care Nurses to talk about how to source hiring for specialized, hard to fill roles, ensuring seamless onboarding and immediate productivity. I want to first point to this third slide here, talking a little bit about sourcing prospects for these hard to fill roles. And this is from an article from Recruiting Daily. And just to kind of run through a couple of these 7 points, this first one, asking current employees for referrals, using your existing network, connections. I think that's absolutely key here. Creating growth opportunities and advancement goals. Upskilling, we're talking about making sure that people feel that they're being productive and useful, an actual cog in the organization rather than somebody just sitting on the sidelines watching the world go by. Establish relationships with industry-specific recruiters, again, going back to the aspect of people who are specialized within the healthcare industry. Using assessment tools, an employee referral system that has been really, really strong. I've seen people use employee referral systems and actually reward those who have referred after they've hit their 90-day mark, whatever it might be. Recruitment marketing, obviously that is something for probably those bigger organizations that have a little bit bigger of a budget, able to put some of that aside for recruitment campaigns, and then reach out proactively to candidates who have signed up for candidate databases, improves response time and reply rates. Again, lowering that turnover rate in terms of the recruitment side of things, I think is absolutely huge. Desiree, my question for you is, what are some effective sourcing strategies that HR can utilize to attract candidates for those hard to fill clinical roles?
So I just got off the phone today with the other talent acquisition managers that I work with. So they're my peers and they manage the RN recruiters. And so what they do is they rely on, all the data that we have, all the vacancies, what are our high priority units, and really use their sourcers to really be strategic about sourcing for some of those hard to fill positions. I can't tell you how valuable, like I said, we just learned what that was. And not too long ago, we were like, oh boy. I don't know what we thought. I think we just thought candidates fell out of the sky somewhere. I'm not sure, but having that team in place and really getting to know them, they spend a lot of time with my team to, like I said, to get to understand the organization as a whole, what the units are looking for and where can they. So we even have some sourcers that like to work during the nighttime because nurses work at night and they're on the computer, on their breaks and at lunch looking for things. They look at their phone at night. And so really being strategic that way, in that sense as well, because who do we want? Night shift nurses. So that's what we're looking for. And so I think that being strategic and targeted, areas that we're looking for, I think that's key for sourcing as well.
That's such a good point. I love the idea of, again, recruiters who know the industry well, who kind of speak the language of, in this case, maybe night nurses who we're trying to recruit more in this case. I think that's really important. And I think that's really smart. Amber, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I do have, again, some information from our new talent trends report on this, on just non-traditional sourcing. I think, something that we've kind of talked about over the past few years when with this, what has been coined the Great Resignation, is not just, posting a position online and then that's it, but actually looking at some of the non-traditional sources, your boomerang employees, people who have left the organization, do they want to come back? People who have retired, active duty military, veterans, their spouses, older workers, opportunity youth is another one, individuals with disabilities or individuals that have been formerly incarcerated. Let's say they had, a minor marijuana charge or something 10 years ago, and not excluding those individuals. So really, when you're sourcing, looking at areas that you could do it where, you can find people where you wouldn't typically find people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the onboarding process, right, making sure that people are hitting the ground running, Amber, I'll start with you. I'm curious what you recommend healthcare organizations actually do to better approach the onboarding process as a whole to ensure that seamless transition straight into the company for those, very specific roles that were already hard to source for, let alone onboard. What do you think that they should do to kind of better that process?
So it's actually been a while since I've recruited for healthcare positions. So, but I think in general though, having a formal onboarding process or program is really important. You just don't want to hire someone and say, here you go, you're in this department, and kind of throw you to the wolves, and that's it. As an onboarding, it's not just new hire paperwork. It's, going in, it's the new hire paperwork, it's the training, it's the mentorship. Maybe they have a buddy that they are paired with. It's, making sure that you have frequent communication with them. Onboarding can take up to a year. So just not allowing them to come in and say, okay, you've done your week and that's it, because more than likely you're going to end up losing that individual. Most people leave within the first year of employment just because they, came into something that they thought was one thing and it turned out to not be. The other thing that I do, and I don't know if this is something that healthcare entities could do, I guess it would depend on their areas, but job previews are great to be able to come in, to be able to talk to other employees, to be able to see what the environment's like, to see what the job role is, and just kind of observe can really help someone identify whether or not it's a good fit for them, just like we're seeing if they're a good fit for us. So that's something that I always like to do and encourage employers to do.
I love that. It's almost like career day at college.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's like being like, hey, this could be your future. What do you think? I think that's great. And I think it's different. I don't think a lot of healthcare companies are doing that. Desiree, what do you think about, the onboarding process, how it could be better streamlined?
Yeah. So, yes, onboarding into a hospital it's a very lengthy process.
Yeah.
Because everybody's coming to that corporate orientation that first week. I think maybe streamlining some of that, looking at all of that, because it's the same every healthcare organization that you work for, every hospital, everybody's going to orientation that first week. And yes, a lot of that is regulatory stuff. So the regulatory stuff, could we figure out how to streamline that and organize that in a nice package that could be part of online learning maybe? And then you can spend time on the culture and what your cause is and all of those things, because that is that's that last stamp of, now I'm finally here. I heard all these things on my touch points about culture and cause and all of that. And now I'm really going to embrace all of that because I'm finally here, and then show up to your unit. So I think that is, I think that's every person who's ever been through hospital orientation. They would love to have that regulatory stuff. Yes. We have to have it streamlined. I do think there is value for shadowing. That is a slippery slope with the HIPAA violations and things like that. So that's why many organizations don't do it, because we don't have someone just manning, volunteering, signing the paper, volunteers coming in and things like that, because it's at this point, we just can't operationalize that. But we do offer unit tours. So I think having organization offer those, again, going back to some of the basics, like, yes, we had to interview virtually before, but really it got convenient for all of us, for the leaders, for them, the candidates. And the candidates, sometimes they think that's, okay, that's convenient for me, I'll do it. And then, yes, I'll meet my leader virtually, and then I show up to work and I'm like, oh gosh, either this unit is larger than what I thought it was, I'm going to be walking all day, or we're like a pack of sardines in here, I can't even move or breathe. So I think that there's value to going back to some of those basics of those in-person interviews as much as we can, especially for some of those hard to fill roles, and some of those high priority areas. I think offering that up front and getting that in for the interview, here's your tour, so you can make an informed decision. And that also, I think, decreases turnover as well. So
absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Amber.
I was going to say another thing, and I love the unit tour because, of course, you want to work in a good work environment, especially if you're having to come in and not work remotely. So that's great. I also think too, allowing interviews with the people who are in that particular role that they're applying for. I think that's really helpful too, so that they can hear from someone, and it actually makes the employee feel like they have an in with who's being hired within the organization. And so I think that's really helpful. I was thinking about the job previews. Yeah, you don't want a nurse going into the emergency room and a candidate coming in and going, oh wow, look at that in the emergency room. But maybe some of the other positions, the non-clinical positions, that could be something where someone might be able to do a job preview as well. So yeah, I mean, that's a good thing to do. I mean, you want to make sure that it's a good fit for them and it's a good fit for you.
Absolutely. Desiree, you talked a little bit about like the regulatory aspects, streamlining that when it comes to the onboarding. It's the onboarding process for healthcare is obviously very specific. We actually have a client called Care Agency Services, and they are an aged care, elderly care company. They have a couple locations, but they're great. But every year they have to onboard a couple hundred of employees just because of the demand, right? It fluctuates. And not that it's a super specific role, aged care to have to fill, nurses and whatnot within this segment, but it's a lot of people that the recruitment team had to onboard, and they're actually able to cut it down by 94% in terms of the timing of it, because it went down from 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes 2 hours to actually get these people onboarded with the paperwork, to just 2 minutes because of the onboarding mobile app on the phone. They're able to just get everybody in and quickly hit the ground running, and able to spend more time. Recruitment team members were able to spend more time touring the facilities with them, being their buddy, actually showing them in person, kind of increasing that engagement as well right off the bat, right? Making sure they're hitting the ground running. And yeah, and they were able to take some of that, grueling paperwork out of the picture. And I think that's super important. So yeah, some of that regulatory stuff, of course, it's super important compliance wise, right? We need to make sure that we're remaining compliant. But at the same time, if you can just automate it, have it already put in, the back end on the HR side of things and filed away, organized, amazing. Saving 94% of time for recruiters in HR, I'll take it. So in terms of, the importance of retention for, more specialized, hard to fill clinical roles, Desiree, what steps can you recommend that maybe HR recruitment managers take during the onboarding process to actually foster a more supportive environment, an engaging environment that encourage longevity?
I think it is, like you said, that over communication. I think once they hit the unit, having frequent check-ins, as much as possible. Everyone who's involved in that person's onboarding, like their preceptor, their unit educator, if they have one, making sure that everybody is on the same page, and making it so that even though my preceptor was assigned to me, maybe I have a different learning style, and making it comfortable, making it an open environment for them to be able to openly share. This isn't working for me. I need a different learning style, or I need something different, for us to be able to meet the needs of the candidate, as well as the candidate meets the needs of the organization as well. So I think that it's those frequent check-ins and creating it as an open environment, and not just a checklist like, oh, how are you doing? Oh, did you get this done? Did you get this done? Do you know where the fire hydrants are? Like all that kind of stuff. So it's really a more meaningful conversation with, early on, you start maybe every 2 weeks, just meeting until you get through that first, couple months, because orientation expands anywhere between 8 to 16 weeks based on where the person is going to work in the role and unit acuity, that kind of thing. But whatever that looks like, having those frequent touch points up front, I think is key to making sure that they don't leave within that first year. And then even after that, yes, we have one-on-one check-ins with all of our employees, but maybe during that first year, they're even more frequent until they get to that second year mark and you feel comfortable that this person is actually engaged in the unit. So, and it's that mentorship program, all of those different things to help support that person to become part of the team.
I love that there's an idea of where, you know, the timeline should be in terms of the marketing, right? Like, okay, the second they hit 2 years, feeling pretty good about the stickiness of this new hire, at least new for 2 years at that point, or, you know, the longevity of it, how engaged they are. And not to say that you should go completely slack on the engagement side of things, but, you know, you can pull back a little bit at that point and saying, okay, we see the average retention of an employee who hits this milestone, and we see that they're able to stick around for 3 more years at that point. I think that's really important. Amber, what do you think in terms of just engagement protocols, even if it's more generalized?
Yeah, I think, again, you know, pairing a new employee with someone who's more tenured is really helpful. Engagement surveys. I was just talking to another person who said that they have net promoter scores, not just for their customers, but also for their employees as well. And really kind of those pulse surveys, if you will, checking in, see how everybody's doing. There's technology that you can actually, when you want to meet with someone, you could have like a scale, a rating scale. How are you feeling today? Are you doing well? Are you doing not so well? And, you know, having those conversations, like you said, Desiree, that are not just checking the boxes, but like, how are you doing? How are you feeling about the job? You know, are there any concerns? What can I help you with? That's part of being that empathetic leader and being able to, you know, make sure that you are, you know, assessing, you know, is this person burned out? You know, has their behavior changed? Is there something different, you know, and have, you know, benefits, EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, or the healthcare, or whatever benefits that you offer to your employees, making sure that they know that those are available to them as well, and being supportive. I think all of those things could really help retain employees.
I love it. Desiree, we'll start with you. I love to end with this final question here. What are 1 or 2 top tips, actions, or takeaways our audience can leave with to improve recruitment of these clinical roles?
I think the most important thing is having a trusting relationship with your recruiter. Spending time with them, as if you're the hiring leader, spending time with the recruiter and helping them understand what your needs are, not just an intake form and saying, check, check, check. The boxes have to kind of go away. And if you are an in-market recruiter, meeting with them in the unit and seeing the environment and seeing the facility, I think that would be my one takeaway.
I love it. Amber, what about you?
So I would say, and I don't know, Desiree, if you were on this think tank, but a couple of years ago, I participated in a nurse staffing think tank. It was with the American Nursing Association, some other organizations, and we came up with some not guidelines, but guidance for healthcare entities to be able to help recruit and retain their employees. So I would say, you know, check that out. If you just Google nurse staffing think tank or the American Nursing Association, you can go online and you could see that. We talked about work schedule flexibility, diversity, equity, inclusion, innovative care delivery models, total compensation, you know, and creating that healthy work environment, which we talked about earlier. It's not just about the physical safety, but it's about the psychological safety as well. And so I think, you know, it has some really great tips in there for individuals who are recruiting for healthcare positions, specifically nurses, but I think it's still helpful overall for anyone.
Thank you so much for watching that segment from our webinar on how to improve recruitment of clinical roles in healthcare. If you'd like to watch the full webinar, click this video here and be sure to subscribe for more content like this.